Look, I got carried away with the hip hop drums, but seriously, this is, I'm having the best time. This is amazing. What's up everyone, Luke here from Solid State Logic, and today we're heading back again into the history books of music production. But instead of valves and transformers, we're taking a less analog approach, and instead evoking the sound of classic electronica and hip hop inspired by the early samplers and rack effects that shaped those pioneering records and continue to be sought after in modern music production due to their unique edge, grit and tone. So, brand new from Solid State Logic, I'm super pleased to share with you Digicrush, a deep and unique plugin that delivers gritty, lo-fi character of classic digital distortion, perfectly emulating the degradation and artifacts of early digital audio. Digicrush features a range of controls to shape the distortion effect, with built-in jitter, adjustable bit depth, a sample rate reduction, along with anti-aliasing and overload controls to take your sounds from clean and punchy to gritty and crunchy with ease. So, simply put, SSL Digicrush is a dream plugin for those of you looking to add the extra knock to your beats or edge to your tracks, and gives you the flexibility to authentically recreate the tone of those classic samplers and rack effects that become so sought after in modern production environments. So, now let's take a look at the GUI and get familiar with the controls, then we'll dive into a few examples of Digicrush in action. And of course, you all know the drill by now. Before we can begin using Digicrush in our sessions, we need to download the plugin, which we can do via the SSL Download Manager, available from the Solid State Logic website. Follow the instructions on screen to install Digicrush, and whilst you're there, go ahead and update any other SSL plugins that may be available. Now we're ready to jump over to our DAW and begin putting Digicrush to work. So let's open up Digicrush and look at the GUI controls. Starting at the top right, we have the bits control. This allows us to manipulate the bit depth of the incoming signal, going from 24-bit all the way down to 1-bit. The higher bit depth results in a higher fidelity signal, with the option to degrade this to mimic vintage samplers or ADCs like a 16-bit MPC 3000 or 12-bit SP 1200. Below this control, we then come to the bits mode. This switchable control moves between sets of quantization and dither, changing the way the bit depth affects the signal. The following modes are set up like so. Gate mode, which uses a mid-tread quantization and no dither. Destroy, that uses a mid-riser quantization and no dither. Smooth has a mid-tread quantization with DC shift and a rectangular dither. And finally noisy, that results from a mid-riser quantization and triangular dither. For more information on these modes, check out the manual on the support pages at solidstatelogic.com. Now, to the left, the overload simultaneously reduces the quantization scale while increasing the overall gain to the output to maintain the level of the output. This creates a blown speaker style effect, similar to the technique of gaining into an ADC to maximize a noise-to-signal ratio that results in a heavy boom-bap style drum sound at lower settings to full-on signal decimation at the top end of the scale, giving unique flexibility to shape your signal in a variety of sonic ways. Below this then, we have the downsample control. This starts off in the off position, but adjusts the sample rate from 40 kHz down to 200 Hz. Again, ideal to simulate different eras of vintage digital gear, and includes a resampling jitter as a secondary control that introduces random variations in the sample rate. Higher values increase the randomness, adding more jitter to the signal, creating ever more unstable sonic artifacts that can add sublime texture to sustained sounds such as synth pads or reverb tails. Across the bottom centre, starting on the left, we then have the anti-aliasing. When engaged, the anti-aliasing filter removes harmonic content above the Nyquist frequency from the input signal, which is defined as half the sampling frequency as defined by the downsample control. Next to this, the frequency control sets the cutoff frequency deviation of the filter, which is offset from the Nyquist frequency of the downsampler. With the deviation of the frequency control set to 0 at default, this sets the filter cutoff frequency exactly at the Nyquist frequency. This results in removing the entire harmonic content above the Nyquist frequency, which prevents the artifacts from appearing below this point. The only type of artifacts occurring now are harmonics above the Nyquist point, also known as images. When we alter the frequency control, plus 100% sets it to 44.1 kHz, and minus 100% sets it to the Nyquist point divided by 20. Positive frequency, therefore, allows you to tailor a level of anti-aliasing effects from the full frequency range, mimicking a more characterful sound reminiscent of samplers like the SP1200. Down to the negative values, which result in over-the-top anti-aliasing filtering and extreme negative values removing more signal than would be required for the anti-aliasing, and also remove some of the signal below the resampled Nyquist point. Next to this, we then have the anti-imaging controls. In the same way as the anti-aliasing, when engaged, plus 100% sets this to 44.1 kHz and minus 100% sets it to the Nyquist point, which is the downsampling point divided by 20. Except this is applied after the resampling. So again, a positive value of the frequency control moves the cutoff frequency from the resampled Nyquist value up to 44.1 kHz, and a negative value moves it from the Nyquist down to the Nyquist divided by 20. Now we've had a look at the controls, it's time now to get to work, so let's jump over to our DAW and work with some audio examples for you to get a better idea of how Digicrush sounds in action. Okay, so in this demo, we're going to take Digicrush and turn some acoustic drums into some 90s style boom bap drum grooves. Now, in this session here, I've got a Nashville style pop rock track, and that's just to show that we're going to try and sample drums from anywhere to get this aesthetic. So we wouldn't be taking hip hop drums, we want to take drums that we can resample and manipulate into that sound, as if we were sampling from a record. So let's have a listen first to these drums, just the drum group, with no Digicrush. There's a bit of bus processing, and then we'll have a look at using Digicrush to get that sort of boom bap aesthetic. Cool, nice, clean drums, well recorded. But let's now use Digicrush to really grit these up. Now, let's turn that on. First thing I want to do is I want to emulate an SP1200, and that's a 12-bit drum machine. So let's take that down, that's 12 bits. And let's see if that's made any difference to the sound. A little bit more punch in the kick, but it's still quite subtle at this point because we've still got quite a good dynamic range. But let's now use the overload control to push into the ADC and see if we can grit up, like internally compress this signal before it hits the ADC, like we would have done in the old school sort of sampling workflow, and see what happens. Immediately, that low level overload just really brings that to life. You can hear the snare compress and really snap. Push that a bit harder. You can hear that kick now breaking up, really cool. Let's now play with this. Let's try the destroy. The way the cymbals are starting to break up, that's really cool. That overblown kick sound's now getting a little bit darker, a bit more textured. Cool, right, listen to that snare. That's getting really snappy, that's wicked. That noisy bit mode seems to sort of tame the top end a little bit. Alright, cool. I like that. Let's try this down sample. Now the down sample is going to recreate the sort of the frequency band range that an old sampler might have. It starts off at 40 Hz, but let's pull this down. Just down to 20 Hz-ish. Now this down sample is going to change how we use these anti-aliasing and anti-imaging controls. But let's have a look at the jitter. That's going to change the downsample point, so the Nyquist point here, about 20,000, just under, and that's going to start to move the sample point just up and down, just adding more artifacts. So let's crank this jitter, see what that does. it's getting really gritty. That's cool. Especially in the top end, because now that down sample is going to be jumping around all over the place. That's cool. Right, let's see what this anti-aliasing does. The anti-aliasing is going to play on the Nyquist point and basically act like a filter at the Nyquist point, which is half of the down sample. So if we start to bring this down, we're going to start to pull down the information at half of the Nyquist point. And that's, oh, okay, that's cool. It's getting a really gritty lo-fi sound. Clean drums. Now that's sounding like a really dark old grimy sampler with some issues with it because of that jitter control. Now the imaging is now going to do the same thing to post downsample, and we can control the images above the Nyquist points. We can either start to add those back in all the way up to 44.1 kilohertz. And if we, now it's getting really bright, very noisy, but it's bringing that snap back. Or we can use that imaging to really, really sort of get that digital distortion sound coming through. Very heavily affected drums, but it's really cool. I think from sound design point of view, that'd be nice as a parallel. So maybe let's pull the mix in. Let that kick thump come through a bit more, but keep that top end sort of crunchy. And let's do a bit. Clean drums. Yeah. Cool. I mean, that's quite extreme settings. That's really cool. I like that. Let's have a listen to this. I mean, in context of the mix, this is going to sound mental because it is not designed to be a Nashville drum sound. But let's just have a listen. Not genre appropriate at all, but that's what it should be. But now I could lift these drums up, take them into a different session and build a hip hop track around that, and that's going to sound right at home. Maybe a little bit too rough. There you go. Cool. 90s style hip hop drums with Digicrush. Ace. Right, now, whilst we're in this session, let's have a listen to Digicrush on some vocals. Let's see what it does. So let's solo up our vocal channel, and I'm gonna put Digicrush on there. Let's stick that back to default and have a listen. So it's pretty until I found thorns and I was sleeping in the bed that I made, and there's no clean vocals. Let's do a bit of bit crushing. Go a bit, there you go, 8-bit. Just adding a bit of noise. A lot of noise. Building a bouquet of roses. The overload sounds cool. Ha. Now I'm done acting like a child. Got piles of advice that I haven't been taking. 'Cause what I've been taking is those red flags, and I was picking them up like heaven. Surrounded and lust could have fooled me. Yeah, I thought it was love. They were pretty until I found thorns, and I was sleeping in the bed that I made. Nice clean vocal. Heavily sort of saturated sample vocal. Oh, I've had enough. I was picking them up like I was building a bouquet of roses. Oh, I'm building a bouquet of roses. That would be really cool, just to maybe put that on the chorus and sort of double parallel process that with a very heavily reverb sort of saturation, and then the Digicrush just to blend in and feed off to the reverb. That's really cool. But that does make me think, how about we take Digicrush off the lead vocal, and you can see I've already set this up. Let's put the Digicrush on the vocal effects returns. So I've set this up earlier, and the idea here is to sort of bed the vocal reverb and delay behind the vocal and just give it some more texture and ambience. So let's take a listen.
I haven't been taken, 'cause what I've been taking is those red flags.
You can hear the reverb and the delay behind that. But let's boost that overload and then a really dark.
They were pretty until I found thorns and I was
that down
sleeping
some.
in the bed that I made, and there's no one else to blame, and now I've
And that just adds a real separation between the vocal and the vocal effects. A very clean vocal, but if we wanted to go for that really dark, groovy, gritty sound, back a bit. Let's add that back in with the drums. Prime for some hip-hop sampling, some old school boom bap. That's wicked, man. I love that. That's really cool. Okay, in this demo, we're going to use Digicrush to grit up some synth pads that I've created. So I've got just a simple chord progression, just playing through and recorded through my analog synth. And we're going to use Digicrush to invoke that early 90s rave sort of sound, bring back some of that nostalgia. Let's have a listen first. I've got Digicrush bypassed, and we're going to listen just to the synth pad with some drums behind it just to give it some groove. And then we'll have a listen to what Digicrush can do. Cool, right, let's see what Digicrush can do with this. So we've got our default state engaged. Let's take it down to 16-bit, MPC style, and bits mode. Let's have a listen. Let's try smooth to begin with and see what we can add to it. Now, first off, let's play with the overload. I think this is the magic. It gets nasty real quick. Okay, it tapers off at the top. That's that's quite cool. Just a bit of texture. Just bringing in that fuzz on the top with the mix. But I think we want to bring that down. That real ringy alias sound, and then bring the anti-aliasing to drop out all of that top end, so we're getting that mid-range squawk. Let's bring that mix up. That's cool. Right. Let's bring in some of those images back. With the modulation, that's sounding cool. And we can almost tune that aliasing. I think the bit mode at this point is sort of almost, we're so far down the downsample path that the bits mode, we can't hear that. So there you go, let's bring that in. That's now really nice and warm, and we've got a bit more headroom, so let's push that overload. I mean, okay, let's have a listen to it off. Quite dramatic, that. I mean, I mean, it's wild. We could automate that in. That'd be really nice to use all of these tools to sort of do that filter build and build those sweeps in on the pads and give that some real life and movement with the same 4 sort of note progression going through with the chords. And we've got so much more we can do with Digicrush. That's cool. But let's bring the drums in. Let's Digicrush the drums and see what we've got now. Digicrush. Nice serviceable drums and synth. Some late 90s techno-esque sort of pads and movement. You guys can leave now. I'm just going to be here for the rest of the evening just doing this. This is great fun. Awesome. All right, so you get an idea of how we can use Digicrush just to really change the sound of these just very organic pad movements off a simple sort of 4-chord progression. Wicked. Right, cool. Yeah, let's get into another demo. Okay, so for our final demo, I'm going to indulge myself with this one. When we started talking about doing demos for Digicrush, the first thing I thought about was I get to make some jungle. So I've taken a very classic drum break, you'll recognise it, and I've chopped it up and done a bit of drum programming. I've built a little tracker style sort of playback system here, so it's just going to groove through these drums and yeah, give me that jungle vibe. And then we've got Digicrush. So let's have a listen to the drums first before we do any processing, and then let's see what we can do. And yeah, let's go for it. Cool, so my very basic attempt at some jungle drums. Let's see if Digicrush can help with reinforcing that authenticity a bit more. So, right, first things first, bits. I'm talking 12-bit, I'm talking SP1200, Akai S950. Let's go. Right, destroy that. Let's go with the bit mode. First things first, downsample. I want to start getting the alias ring in. Yeah, that sounds right. Jitter. Getting a bit crunchy, but yeah, you know what we need is a bit of that knock. Yeah, okay. Let's see what the anti-alias can do. Let's tune that. Bit more overload. Get that grit in now. So bringing that anti-aliasing up above the Nyquist point is now going to really open it up and start adding extra aliasing artifacts. Now sweep that with the anti-imaging. Let's bypass that just to hear what it is. Clean. 90s jungle. Wicked, right. Bring some of that in. Let's see what we can do with the bits. Bring it to some 8-bit. Bring the mix down. I think I want to pull the mix back just to retain some of that knock of the kick. Open up a little bit. I'm going to bring that down sample down. Yeah. Cool. I mean, I can do this all day, but what I did want to show you is how about we use some of the automation features in Ableton using the tools here. So we've got the LFOs. Now, I've mapped these LFOs, the first one being onto our anti-imaging frequency. Second one is going to be playing with the downsample. And now the last one is going to be our jitter control. Now, having these just work the automation parameters of Digicrush, it's just going to breathe even more life into this. And I've almost completely automated this drum break now. So this is no skill of my own, but we just got random parts of the drum break playing down, speeding up, slowing down, and tripping out with the beat repeat. Now we've got the LFOs modulating Digicrush, and I can just press play, and I'm hoping this is going to sound wicked. And if it doesn't, I'm having the best time, and that's probably all that matters, right? So let's go. Play with that bits a bit more. Oh, if we pull that all the way down with the anti-aliasing. Oh. So then we can actually draw in some automation, open that up for the drop, pull it down. Look, I got carried away with the hip hop drums, but seriously, this is, I'm having the best time. This is amazing. Right, roll the outro. Now you've had a chance to see Digicrush in action, the next step is to go and download it and begin getting some authentic lo-fi digital grit anywhere in your mixes. For more in-depth information on Digicrush and all other SSL plugins, just head over to the SSL website support pages to check out the user guides, which will expand upon everything we've covered here, as well as more information on the entire SSL product range. Thanks again for watching, and look out for more video tips, tricks and tutorials coming soon from Solid State Logic.